everyone, thanks for joining me today. In today's video we are going to knit a dog sweater. Now I have another video for a dog sweater, but this is a brand new one. So I hope that you enjoy it, and grab your materials and let's get started. For this project you will need your yarn, your loom, scissors, loom tool, and a darning needle. Now I'm using the Bernette Blanket Pet. First we'll want to make a slip knot. And I'm going to place it on the anchor peg right here on the outside of the loom. Tighten it, but not too tight. And I'm just going to start by making the Ewrap cast on. So the Ewrap cast on is making little E's on each one of the pegs. You want to go around the entire loom. Now if you'd prefer to use a different cast on, go ahead. I like the Ewrap cast on because it's good for beginners and it's easy to understand. So just keep wrapping until you get back to where you started. We're just about done. You can see the anchor peg. So now we're going to start, and we're going to make another row of stitches. Doing the same thing, making little E's. So we're going to have two sets on one peg. So again, go around until you get back to the anchor peg. Okay, so we again are almost back to where we started from. So now I'm going to take my yarn tool or loom hook tool, whatever you call it, and you're going to take the bottom stitch and place it over the top. So you will go around on each one of the pegs, taking the bottom stitch and placing it over the top. This is called knitting over. Okay, so we are almost done with knitting over our cast on down to the last stitch. So now we're going to take that working yarn and we're going to do the purl stitch. Doing the purl stitch, you take your working yarn underneath the stitch on the loom, bring up that working yarn, make a loop, and place that loop back onto the peg. So again, we're taking that stitch, pulling the working yarn up, making that loop, taking the loop off of the peg and placing it back on. Keep doing this the entire way around the loom. There's your loop, take it off and then place that loop back on to the peg. And again, this is called the purl stitch. This process the entire way around the loom until you get back to the anchor peg. So keep going, making that loop. And then we'll see you at the other side. Okay, this is my last purl stitch. I'm going to tighten that up a little, and then I'm going to move to the next step, which is going to be an Ewrap stitch. So we are doing sets of knit and purl. So together that makes up one row. Even though it's actually two different things, we're doing that and it's making one row. So I'm keeping track of every row that I'm doing. And for this particular part of the dog sweater, it's going to be a total of 19 rows. So that is 1 knit, 1 purl. 1 knit, 1 purl. So each 1 knit and 1 purl equals 1. So on this particular sweater, it's 19 rows. So now I'm knitting over the Ewrap stitch that I just did. Okay, we are coming around to the other side. So now it's time to push your stitches down on the loom so you have room. Now we're going to do the purl stitch next, so you want to leave room, but it's now time to take that slip knot off of the anchor peg. So if you have a loom like that and it's attached outside, go ahead and release it and pull it back in the middle of the loom so it's out of your way and there's no added tension to your project. So there it is. Now we can proceed to the purl stitch again. So we're going to do the purl stitch all the way around the loom and we're going to continue this pattern. So again, I'm doing this a total of 19 times. So when I say 19 times, that's the knit and the purl stitch combined. So together I'm doing that 19 times, and what I'm creating now is the neck portion of the sweater. Okay, we're going to start binding the leg holes next. So I have 4 orange stitch markers, and that's where our legs are going to be. So we're going to knit over 1, then we're going to knit over 2. We're going to take the stitch off of 2 and place it on 1. Then we're going to knit over the stitch on 1. Take it off of the peg if you can get it. Sometimes they get stuck, especially on this loom. Place it on peg 2. Now we're going to knit over on peg 3. Take it off of the loom. Place it on the second peg. Knit over. Take that off of the peg. Place it on peg 3. Now we're going to knit over, we're going to knit peg 4. Take that yarn off of peg 4 and place it on peg 3. We're going to knit over peg 3. Take peg 3 and place it on peg 4. Now we're going to knit peg 5, even though it doesn't have a stitch marker. Take it off of the loom. Take that stitch off of the loom. Place that stitch on peg 4. Knit over peg 4. Knit that over. Take that off of the loom. And place it back onto peg 5. Tighten your yarn a little bit. So there we have our first leg hole. We did the bind off. So see there's the leg hole. Now we're going to do the Ewrap to the other side of the loom. So push your stitches down to make room for the stitches on top. And just go around the loom, making the little E's. This is the Ewrap stitch. So you'll definitely need room. And then we're going to stop 4 pegs out because I need to put a stitch marker on those pegs. And I didn't have enough orange stitch markers, so I didn't want to confuse you. So I'm going to stop right here on the 4th peg. And then I'm going to add my stitch markers and come back. So, but before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and knit over these just to secure the yarn, because I don't want to lose where I'm at. So we're just knitting over these pegs here. So we're just knitting over. So I'm going to move those stitch markers over now. So I'm going to move 4 on the other side to make the 2nd leg hole. So we're going to start our bind off. Okay, so we're going to knit 1, knit the one next to it, take that stitch off, place it to the right, knit over, take that stitch off and place it to the left. Now we're going to knit the one next to it, take the stitch off of the peg and move it to the right. Now we're going to knit over that peg, take that off, move it to the left, and again this is binding off. Now we're going to knit the next one, take that stitch off of the peg, move it to the right, knit over, and then we are going to take this stitch off of the peg, move it to the left, and then we'll have one more. So we are going to knit the one of the blue stitch markers here. This is the middle strap. We're only going to do one. So we're going to knit, take that off. Then we're going to knit over this peg. Then we're going to take this stitch off of the peg and move it to the left of the middle peg. So there we have made our 2nd bind off for the leg hole. So now we have 2 leg holes. And this is how it should be looking. Okay, our next step is working on that middle strap. So I'm going to do the flat knit, which is just taking your working yarn above the stitch on the loom and we're knitting over. We're going to do this for a total of 9 times. So again, just back and forth for a total of 9 times, and this is going to make your middle strap for the dog. So it does go pretty quick once you get into the groove of things. And then after we do this, we're going to close the leg holes. So just continue going back and forth 9 times. I do have the written pattern and I will link it in the description box below. One thing I do recommend for doing this project is having a tape measure, because you will need to measure your dog, like the belly length and the back length, just because each dog is different and you just want to make sure that you are making your sweater long enough so your little dog will be covered. Okay, our strap is done, so now we're going to close those leg holes up. So we're going to go back to the Ewrap stitch. So obviously the leg holes are not going to have 2 stitches on them, so you will want to wrap those anyway, because again, we're going to close that up. So wrap those empty pegs, and then you'll just come back to them and rewrap them, for the next row. So that's how it should be looking. So don't worry about that. It's not supposed to have 2 on the peg, just 1. So just go ahead and continue doing your Ewrap all the way around. Make room. It will probably help to push those down. So just keep wrapping, making your little E's. And now we're at the empty pegs on the other side where the other leg hole is. So wrap those. And now we're almost back to where we started from. So go ahead and secure your yarn. And take the bottom over the top. So we're taking the bottom stitch and placing it over the top stitch, and this is called knitting over. Now we are back doing the purl stitch. I'm placing reminder titles on the top when I'm switching what I'm doing, just to try to help if you get lost, or just as a little reminder. I hope that's helpful to you if you feel like you're getting lost or need a reminder. Just take your time and go slow. There's no rush. The leg holes are now closed, so we have closed them up on both sides. So now we're going to continue doing our Ewrap and our purl stitch. So we're going to go back to doing the Ewrap and the purl stitch. 1 round of the Ewrap stitch and 1 round of the purl stitch is equaling 1 row for us. So when I say 1 row, I mean a round of Ewrap knit and a round of purl stitch. So that would equal 1 row. For this sweater, I'm doing a total of 19 rows to get down to the belly portion. So we're binding our leg holes off, then we're back to 1 knit, 1 purl. Then what we're doing is we're measuring the belly of our dog. So you want to measure from after the leg holes to where it would come to down on the belly, but you need to make it short enough where when the dog goes potty, it's not going to pee on the sweater. So for my dog, it's about 7 inches. So I need to knit for 7 inches, and it's a total of 19 rows. Once you get where you need to be, you will want to place 8 stitch markers in the front of your loom to match up with your leg holes and with that middle strap. So I have placed those on. Now what I'm going to do is Ewrap to the other side because we're going to bind off. So now we are on the right side of the loom at the start of our pegs. We're binding off. So we're going to knit 1, knit the second one, take the stitch off. Place it on the one beside it, and then knit over. Now we're going to knit the next one. Take the stitch off of the peg, put it to the right. Then we're going to knit over that stitch. Take that off of the peg, place it on the empty peg. Knit the next one. Take that off of the peg, place it on the right peg, knit over. Take that off of the peg, put it to the empty peg. Now we're going to knit that next peg. Take that one off of the peg, put it on the right, knit over. And we're going to continue this process until we bind off the belly. So here we have the belly is off. Now we're going to continue and we're going to do the purl stitch. So we're going to go back to doing a knit and a purl. So we just did, the knit and the bind off. So we're going to continue by doing the purl stitch now. So remember, one knit and one purl equals one row. So continue doing your purl stitch. Now we're doing our Ewrap stitch, but I wanted to show you when you're going back and forth working like this, we're going to skip the first peg. So now the first row we did the purl, we didn't skip the first peg, but now we're going to start skipping. So here we're doing the Ewrap, and I showed you that I skipped the first peg. So just push those other pegs down and make room for your Ewrap stitch. Continue doing your Ewrap stitch the whole way over, and then go ahead and knit over. So we are continuing to make the rest of the sweater. Now for my dog, I'm doing 10 rows. So I'm doing 10 more rows of one round of knit and one round of purl, and then I will be ready to bind off. So I'm just going to continue doing the knit and the purl. Now my last row I'm going to do is the knit. So I'm going to show you, we are on our last row. So I'm doing the Ewrap stitch. Then we will be ready to bind off. And I will show you step by step on how to do that. If you have any questions, of course, please leave them in the comments below, and I will do whatever I can to try and help you. So again, this is our last row, and we're doing the Ewrap stitch. So go ahead and knit over, and then I will show you what to do next. Push those stitches down on your peg. So here we're binding off, so we are going to knit the first peg, then we're going to knit the second peg, take the stitch off of the second peg and put it on the first. Then we're going to knit over. Then we're going to take that stitch off of the peg and move it to the empty peg. Do the same for the next one. Knit over, take it off the peg, move it to the right, knit over, take that off of the peg and move it to the left. Knit over the next stitch, take it off the peg, move it to the right. You can tighten your working yarn if you need to. Knit that one over, take that off of the peg, move it to the empty peg on the left. Then we're going to knit the next one. Move it to the right. Then we're going to knit over, remove that stitch off the peg, tighten. Then we're going to knit the next one. Take it off of the peg, move it to the right, knit over, take that off of the peg, move it to the left. Now we're going to knit the next one, remove that stitch off of the peg, put it to the right, tighten it if you need to, knit over, take that off the peg, place it to the empty one on the left. Stitch the next one, or knit the next one, take it off the loom, move it to the right, then we're going to, then we're going to knit over. I do need to fix this. I have no glue at the time, which is obviously driving me crazy. Take that stitch off of the loom very carefully, move it to the empty peg to the left, knit over the next one, take it off of the loom, move it to the right, knit over, take that off, put it to the empty peg to the left, knit over the next one. It's very repetitive. Take that stitch off of the loom and place it to the right, knit over, place it to the left, now we're going to knit the next stitch, take it off of the peg and move it to the right, knit over, take that stitch off of the peg and move it to the left, knit the next one, take that stitch off and place it to the right, knit over, take that stitch off and place it to the left, knit over, place it to the right, then you knit over this peg, take that off of the peg and put it to the left. Whoops. Okay, tighten that up just a little. If that happens to you, just tighten your working yarn just a bit. Now we're ready to knit over the next peg. Take that off of the peg, place it to the peg to the right, then knit that peg, take it off of the peg and move it to the empty peg on the left. Then we're going to knit the next peg, take it off, place it to the right, knit over, remove that stitch, place it to the left, tighten if you need to. Now we're going to knit over again, take it off, place it to the right, knit over that stitch, take that off, move it to the left, and we're going to knit over the next stitch, place it to the right, knit over, take that off of the peg, move it to the left, tighten if you need to, knit over the next stitch, place it to the right, tighten if you need to, then we're going to knit over, take that off of the peg, knit the next stitch, take that off of the peg, knit over, take it, place it to the left on the empty peg. We're almost done. Knit the next peg, take that off, move it to the right, knit that peg over, take it off of the peg, place it to the empty peg on the left. Then we're going to knit the next peg, take it off, place it to the right, knit over that peg and remove it, place it to the left. Now we're going to knit over, take that off, place it to the right, knit over that stitch. Now we are done. Take that off of the peg. Go ahead and cut your working yarn if you want to. Now remove that stitch off of the loom, hold it carefully, put it through. Then we're going to place this through the little tail through the hole, and we're going to create a knot. So place that in the hole and just tighten it up. So now we have created a knot. The next part we are going to work in the loose ends. Now I say this in every video, there's no perfect way. I used to stress out about it. I no longer do. I make it secure and I hide it. That's the best I can do. Do not stress out about this. I tell you, it's really okay. Do the best you can and don't worry. Just hide it and make sure it's secure. That's the best thing you can do. Once you've done that, then you'll want to cut that tail off. Now we have a tail up here. So you want to do the same thing for this. So this is where you'll need your darning needle. So just, again, secure that tail and hide it, and you are done. This is my dog Heidi and her dog sweater. And that's going to do it for our Loom Knit dog sweater. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe and click that notification button so you will get a notice every time I upload a video. I really appreciate you watching, and I will see you at the next video. Bye-bye.